Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Homeschool Live. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I am here with Cynthia of Branson Academy. And Cynthia, she has been a homeschool legend, so to speak. She's been homeschooling since the 80s, and she has come such a long way homeschooling her own children and helping people all across the country with their homeschooling needs. I am so excited to hear about everything that she offers the homeschooling community today. Cynthia, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate being here. And I just want to say thank you to you and to the Old Schoolhouse team for your leadership and your guidance for the homeschool community. It's just been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And if you can go ahead and share this with your friends and post this on your timeline, anybody that you know that would be interested in hearing what Branson Academy has to offer, let them know about this interview so they can get their comments in. And make sure you comment, ask questions, and let's get started. So, Cynthia, tell us about Branson Academy.
I'd love to. Thank you. It's a neat story. It's just kind of fun how some things just are what I call God directed, So we started homeschooling, as you said, back in the 80s, which was a completely different experience than what homeschool moms have today. So much of what we did back then, we really had to create on our own. In the 90s, Branson was the name of our private homeschool. And then in the 2000s, we moved to a rural area that's halfway between Santa Cruz and Monterey on the Central Coast in California. And I discovered families here who were really dissatisfied with the charter schools that they were homeschooling through because they weren't allowed to use religious material, religious curriculum.
Wow.
And I was thinking about it. And for a lot of families, it was a huge stumbling block for them back in the day. Side note is that if you're enrolled in a public school, you do need to follow the guidelines of that school, whatever school you're enrolled in, right? But so back during this time, I was giving a lot of thought, and as I did, I just received this really strong impression to offer enrollment in our private school, and so that's what we did as an umbrella covering for them. And at the time, I had been homeschooling for almost 20 years, and I also was running a music studio that I had been doing for 10 years. And I was busy in our faith community. I was the choir director. I was the organist, just as a lot of moms today, just a busy lifestyle, right? And a situation occurred where my hands were badly burned and I was no longer able to teach piano or play the organ. And as hard as that was, it opened this opportunity to really focus on Branson and to really develop a family business and to design a program that could be really helpful to parents and give them freedom and flexibility and help them have a positive, successful homeschool experience. So we incorporated, my son designed our first website. My daughters, a couple daughters who still were at home, helped with filing and making labels for folders, for student folders. And we wrote an instruction manual. My husband helped design the Excel spreadsheets for the student information system. And along the way, it was always, what can we do? How can we help? How can we help other people and other families have the best experience possible? So that was really kind of the impetus behind Branson getting started at the time.
I would love to know, where does the name Branson come from?
So that's such a great question. I get that a lot because my last name is Simonovich, right? So completely different. When we first decided to name our school, which we hadn't done, until the 90s, we decided to name our school. We took the name after one of my husband's relatives on his father's side. She was this intrepid, strong woman, and her last name was Branson, and she married into the Simonovich family, which at the time was unusual because the Slavic community in the area really kind of kept to themselves. And so for her to marry into that was really a big deal. And I just always felt that Jenny Branson was just this amazing woman. And that's who we named our school for.
I love that. That's wonderful. So, before we continue, I just would love if you could clarify now, certain states require, like you mentioned, umbrella schools. So I'm assuming California is one of them. I believe Tennessee. I'm not going to list all of them because I'm not sure. Could
Right.
you explain exactly how that works for those who may not be in those states that require?
Right. Right. And so that is actually part of one of the legal ways to homeschool in California. And as your listeners know, every state has different regulations, and I really encourage parents to check your state regulations, so that you know what you're doing. There are actually a couple states that we do not enroll students from. Those states, Washington is one of them. They will only accept students enrolled in what's called a PSP, or private school satellite program, in that state, right?
Okay.
Um, the majority of the other states, they're totally okay if you enroll in a PSP in another state. They just want to make sure that records are kept and that state mandates are followed. In California, that's one of the legal options. So you have 4 legal options in California, and one of them is enroll in a charter school, which is basically your public school doing homeschool through the charter school. The other is to establish your own school. That has pros and cons of its own. To hire a credentialed tutor, and the tutor has to be credentialed in the grade levels of your student, or to enroll in a private school satellite program like ours. And one of the issues that we come up with, and back in the day, I had no problem saying, if you want to establish your own private school, do it. Uh, Because of technology, privacy needs have changed considerably. And
Mm.
so if you're in California and you're enrolling and you're establishing your own private school, your information is now public on the CDE website.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's just a separate issue, and if you're comfortable with that and you're okay with that, then and that works for your family, then that's a way to do it. Um, for a lot of families, enrolling in a private school satellite program, or PSP, what we call PSP here in California, it's just a way to protect the family.
Okay. Wow. I'm really glad you clarified that because there are so many new, as we know, so many new homeschoolers coming on board with the pandemic and so many other reasons. And I've even seen people move out of state to our state and they just assume they can just keep doing things as usual, but we really need to know our state laws. And it sounds like you are helping homeschoolers homeschool the right way, the best that you can. And I think that's awesome. So you help with transcripts. Is that right? You help with whatever is necessary um, that parents need. And I think that takes a huge load off of their shoulders because that's usually where a lot of the stress comes in.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
So, could you share specifically how Branson Academy helps homeschooling families? If somebody wants to join your program, what services do you offer them?
Oh, absolutely. I love sharing this information, and even if parents aren't enrolling in our program, I think this information is helpful for all of your listeners. So we talked about the umbrella program, the umbrella covering, and that's really very helpful for our California families. We also enroll families who are what we call traveling homeschoolers. We have a lot of families now who travel across the country, and we have international students as well. So
Wow.
we have families enrolled in different states, and for many families who are enrolled in other states that don't need that umbrella covering, it's because of the administrative support, and that's kind of the next area I'll talk about. We really have 3 areas that we focus on. One is the umbrella covering, the second is the administrative support, and then third is our what I call homeschool coaching. So the
Mm.
administrative support is where you're talking about the record keeping. For a lot of parents, especially those who are transitioning from a public school, there's a lot of concern because they want to do it the right way. They want to do it correctly, right? And that's where we help. So we handle those student transfers, and we just like any other school. If you were enrolling your child in the local Montessori school down the street, um, we contact your prior school and we give them that enrollment verification, and we do the student records request, and we handle all of that administrative function so that parents don't have to do that. I always recommend that parents go ahead and call their school and just call the admissions office or the school office and say, hey, we're pulling, we're withdrawing our student and enrolling them in this other school, they'll be contacting you, just because I think that it's important to maintain that civility with your community, right? But
Absolutely.
then we do that backup, and we contact the school for that, and then we provide
Yeah.
the report cards and student transcripts, especially for high school. This is super important and helpful, is to have a credible, standardized high school transcript that's college admissions ready, right?
Wow.
And so, and especially for some of your listeners who may be trying to figure out, well, how do I do a transcript on my own? Um, there are key factors that your admissions people are going to be looking for. And one of them is your GPA, your credit summary, your if there's a SAT or ACT testing score. Those are the key factors they're looking for first. And
Okay.
then they're going to look at what those courses were and what achievements and accomplishments you might have. And there are a lot of parents who do that themselves. There's HSLDA and other websites have transcript generators. You can do that yourself, but that's one of the benefits of enrolling in the private school satellite program is you don't have to do that.
Right.
You
It's a
already
lot
have
of
a
work.
big, yeah, you have a big enough job teaching the kids and making things happen day to day, right? So
Yeah.
that's what we do. We take care of that. And then in addition to that, on our website, just have tons of resources that are available for parents. And when a parent first, especially those who are new to homeschooling, you're transitioning to homeschooling, but even those who have been homeschooling for a while, I think it's really important for parents to understand how their children learn, because that is going to shift your focus to curriculum that's going to meet the needs of your child, right? And so we have resources to help parents discover their sensory learning styles, their general styles, their personality types, and all the things that are going to affect how a student learns, along with grade level assessments. And all these things are available online. Your listeners can Google this and they can find all of these things, but we've curated it and it's all in one spot for our parents. And it's just right there on the grades K6 and grades 7-12 resources. Some of them I have available to the general public that are just on our general resource page, and you can go there and you can find a lot of great resources
Oh,
for
wow.
homeschooling.
That's
Um, the old schoolhouse is on there, as part of our general resources.
oh,
Um, so we have those resources, and then we have curriculum specific, subject specific resources and pro tips for homeschooling. I figure if Home Depot can give pro tips, we can give pro tips on how to homeschool, right?
there you go. Absolutely.
So we do that, and then there's schedules and planners and optional attendance trackers and score trackers, and just as many resources as I can make available to our parents to, again, just help them have a really great experience in homeschooling. So that's the umbrella covering and the kind of administrative support. And then and that's such a great comment I'm seeing there, right? I'm guilty of purchasing things that speak to my own learning style. Oh, Diane, that is so perfect, right? We do that. We see curriculum,
Mhm.
we're like, oh, this looks so great. And your kids hate it, and you can't
Yeah.
understand why. And if you have, I tell parents, if you have an auditory kinesthetic learner, they are going to do great with hands-on projects.
Right.
They're going to do great with audiobooks. They're going to hate workbook pages, right? They're going to hate sitting down with just like, one thing. And the other thing about discovering your child's learning style, and especially we have about a third of our students are students with special needs. So we have
Mhm.
a lot of parents who have children with special needs, whether they're on the autism spectrum or ADHD, or they need speech therapy, or they have anxiety or depression, whatever it might be. So parents really are needing to find resources to meet the needs of those specific challenges for their children. And so especially
Wow.
I talk to a lot of parents with the ADHD and ADD kind of brains, and I say that with a lot of love because I'm a totally ADD brainer type person. Um, and so the difference is if you have a bouncy ball for a child to sit on, or a fidget toy,
Mhm.
those are
Right.
actual tools that are
Love.
helpful for that child's brain, because
Right.
the
For their
child
brain.
needs that body to be calm so that the brain can focus on what you're trying to teach the child, right? And so those are just like so helpful to have that kind of information and that knowledge. I always say that's the first thing. Whatever you do, figure that out first. And then, then let's go and look at curriculum and all the other things that you can pull in. So
That's
that
true. There's so much more to homeschooling than just the schooling part. We have to figure out our child, and I just love that you address that.
I think it's critical. I really do. I feel like that is one of the most important things. And we are so fortunate today to have at our fingertips tools that help us learn. And Emma, I want to say Emma Harris, but I think I've got her name wrong, has a program now that's called Personality Traits for Life. And
Mm.
she does a global assessment, comprehensive assessment, which I think is great for your middle school and high school students, especially because they're at that age, especially in middle school and high school, where they want to know more about themselves, right? They want to learn about
That's a good
themselves, how they
point.
work.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that if you can tap into that during those years and help them learn how they learn, oh my goodness, it will make your job so much easier, but it also will set them up for success in their life as a person, to figure out what their preferences are, what their modalities are, how they learn best, maybe what their weak areas are too, and how they can improve those weak areas, right? And how you can build those up. I always encourage parents to choose material that meets the needs of their child, their strengths, but also to help them build up the foundational areas that they need as well.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like you're really concerned about the whole child and not just, okay, we need to educate our kids, graduate them, get them to college, bam, and then they can go into the world and survive. It sounds like you really care about the student and about finding out who they are so they can be who they're supposed to be when they're older. And that's what education is about. That's what homeschooling is about. And I love that you recognize that and that you foster that with your program. And
Thank you.
it's
Thank you.
beautiful.
I see that Misty put up this comment about one of our students, and I think that that's one of the reasons. Excuse me, just a minute. One of the one of the reasons that I've kind of moved into the focus that I have,
Mm.
because as a young mom, first of all, we didn't have these resources, and
Right.
I remember a time where I was sitting on the couch with two of my daughters, and I was reading a lesson to them, right? And my little boy was sitting on the floor, and he was playing with his Legos. and and so I started asking my daughters questions to the little history lesson that we were reading, and from the floor pipes up this little voice, and he starts answering. And I thought,
Oh.
I didn't know you were listening. I thought you were building with your Legos there.
Oh.
And it was about that time that we were starting to get more information about learning styles and how children were learning. The research was starting to come out, and all of a sudden it was starting to make sense. Oh, this child is an auditory kinesthetic learner. When he
Mm.
was sitting on the floor playing, building, using his hands, he was also listening. And so he was learning in the way that was best for him. I was able to do math lessons with that child orally, Saxon math lesson in 15 minutes with him, whereas he would struggle for an hour and a half sitting at
Wow.
the table trying to write it out,
Yeah.
right? And so that was for me the journey of discovering, oh, this is amazing. We all learn differently.
Yeah.
And so that kind of started it. And then the student that Misty was talking about really became my why
Mm.
for doing Branson. And that is that we had a family enroll in our program who their son was on the autism spectrum, is still on the autism spectrum. He was in fourth grade and he was doing preschool. He was at a preschool academic level. He was just sorting 3 items. That was all he could do.
Right.
Um, and they enrolled him in our program, took him out of school. He was fourth grade, took him out, enrolled him in our program. They purchased what's called an AAC device. So if you have parents out there with special needs children who are nonverbal, an alternative augmented communication device is just key. So they implemented that and one-on-one assistance for this young child. Within a couple years, his academic level just exploded. He went through
Mm.
kindergarten, first grade in the first year,
Wow.
second grade, third grade in the next year, and last year graduated from high school.
Oh,
Graduated from high school, having studied spherical geometry and astronomy and physics and 4 years
wow.
of Latin and writes beautiful poetry and is just this amazing soul, just amazing, beautiful person. And that was why I just kept going. I just kept going because of that family. And then here we are now, in the midst of 2 years going on of this pandemic, and parents have had the opportunity to discover how viable homeschooling is for their families.
Right. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it goes to show that we don't need to do schooling as usual. We can't do schooling as from what we learned growing up, whether it was we were in a private school or a public school. Every child is different. Every child is unique. And I'm sure we see that, you know, parents are pulling kids out of school who have special needs because they're realizing, okay, I need to give them attention because nobody loves your child as much as you love them, right? And so they're seeing that. They're like, okay, I wanted to send them to public school because they have all these great programs, but is it really a program that they need? And so you provide resources so parents can feel equipped to homeschool their special needs children at home. And I think that is incredible because we absolutely can. We can do it, and you provide those resources. So thank you. I think this is so incredible.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would love if you could share what you see right now as one of the biggest challenges that homeschooling parents face.
Oh my goodness. Um, I have the advantage of looking back through decades of homeschooling. And one of the benefits that parents have right now is just so many great resources. So much is available. The flip side of that, of course, is that just this barrage of information that's coming at you all the time. And I think that's a huge challenge is to sort through that and to really help your student to be able to discern. Chris Jansen that you had on a few weeks ago said something that I thought was really key. He said he felt it was important to help students learn to ask good questions. I think in addition to that, I would say yes, and how to discern truth from error
Absolutely.
because students are just getting this barrage of information. And how do you figure out, right, what's good and what's true? So I think that it's really important for parents. Again, we've talked a lot about focusing on, like you said, the whole person, right? And I feel like, you know, you teach a child to read and they're going to be able to figure out most anything one way or another. You teach them to watch
Right.
YouTube videos, they'll be able to figure it out, right? But what parents really, I think what's really hard for parents right now is to discern between all the information that's coming in and how to teach their children their values and what's important in life,
Mhm.
and what is going to, what is really going to serve that person in their life to be a person of integrity, to be a person of truth telling, to be kind, right? Um, you know, I I think about how as parents we come into being parents without a real instruction manual, right?
That's right.
And we're so young. We're so young. We don't know what we're doing. And we're just becoming. We're just learning. And when we think about that, that's what our children are doing too. They're just learning.
Oh,
And and so if we can just kind of be that role model and help them learn, I think that's our job, right?
that's really good. That's really good. So it was funny when I was homeschooling earlier today. My son was like, "When are we going to get to homeschooling?" And I'm like, we are homeschooling. Just because we're working on character development and not doing a worksheet, I'm like, this is homeschooling. This is going to affect the rest of your life, knowing how to deal with your siblings. And I think sometimes parents don't. I mean, I know I didn't when I first started, I'm like, no, we have to get through XYZ. But then you realize the treasure that it is to be able to work on character development during the day. You're home with them, you're able to do that. And it is just an
Yeah.
absolute treasure.
And I think that's part of the lifestyle. We've always said homeschooling is a lifestyle, right?
Right.
And not just that it's a lifestyle where you might be car schooling, as you're going to one activity or another, okay, take your math with you. We're going to be doing it in the car, right? Or we're going to be practicing those multiplication tables, in the car. But it's part of who we are. It's that we continue to educate each other as we're growing, right? And so one of the things also that I would say to parents is see the good, right? See the good in your child. We're studying Old Testament this year, starting with Genesis, right? And whether you're religious or not, I think this just has such a great application. In every step of the creation story, God pauses and he says, this was good. He doesn't wait till the end of creation when it's all done to say, oh, this was good.
Wow.
Every step of the way. And I
I
thought,
love that.
isn't that a beautiful application, right? That we can have in our lives is to see the good, to see the good in ourselves, to see the good in our children, to see the good in our community, to implement that daily gratitude. I feel like there's so much out there that we could focus on that's, that are challenges that we could call some other words, but to see the good and to see that in our children and each other, and to give each other that gift of seeing the good in each other.
That is beautiful. I mean, we definitely don't want to, just hope our life away and be like, okay, what am I going to do when I'm done, when my kids are out of the house, or, because that's definitely a mentality, with some people where they're like, oh, I can't wait till my preschooler is old enough to go to school. And, some of us have overcome that. And now we are consider ourselves blessed to have our kids home, but we don't want to be like, oh, what's going to happen when they all graduate from college? We need to be there in the moment and say it is good for every moment of every day. And I love that. And that's such a good reminder. It's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much. So if you could share with us how someone could get started using Branson Academy, using your resources, joining your program, where do we go? How do we get started?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Of course, parents can go to bransonacademy.net, and I encourage parents to go through the website to see what we have to offer. See if that's something that fits for you and your family first. And then if you're interested, you go ahead and click on that register enroll. It's a 2-step process. We receive the application, we vet it, make sure that we're able to help you, make sure you're not living in Washington, or someplace that we can't help. And then go ahead and fill out that application. And feel free to call. I love to talk with parents about how we can help them. And we have a new feature that we're implementing this year. It's something that we've always been doing, our homeschool coaching, but now we're doing that specifically for all parents and creating packages so that if you just feel like you want a homeschool coach for 6 weeks or just to help you get started or just for a semester, that's great. Contact us. We'd love to help you with that.
That is wonderful. And you're open internationally as well, too. Is that right? You've worked with families outside of country?
Yes, we have had families who have moved internationally in Singapore and the Philippines and England and France. And so it depends upon, again, the country. There's always restrictions in various countries and various states. And so we're always trying to be very careful that we are cognizant of that and how we can best help parents. And that really is our goal, is just to help other homeschool families on their journey, because that's what it is, right? And it's an amazing, as you are finding out, it's an amazing journey.
It absolutely is. Well, I really enjoyed hearing from you and just hearing your heart for homeschooling families and hearing what you have to offer. So thank you, Cynthia, so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Heather. It's been a blessing. It's just been a privilege to speak with you. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for your comments and questions. I really appreciate it. Again, you can still share this video even if you're not watching it live and get it out there into the homeschooling community. And right now, if you're looking for some resources and you want to head over to schoolhouseteachers.com, we have a sale going on right now. It's the Fresh Start sale. And our prices are going up in February. So you can get a really good deal right now if you purchase using code Fresh Start. So you can head over there and check that out, and we will see you next time. Bye.